Good morning to all. Next we can see legality of object. To address the legality of an object in commercial law, several factors need consideration such as its nature, purpose and any applicable regulations. Generally, for an object to be legally used in commerce, it must meet certain criteria. Legality of purpose. The object's purpose and use must comply with the laws and regulations of the jurisdictions in which it is intended to be used. For example, if the object is a product, it must meet safety standards and regulations governing its production and sale. Second one is ownership. The object must be owned or possessed legally by the party using it in commerce. This involves ensuring that there are no disputes over ownerships or claims by third parties. Third one is intellectual property rights. If the object involves intellectual property such as patents, trademarks or copyrights, its use must not infringe upon the rights of the intellectual property owners. Fourth one is compliance with contracts. If there are any contracts or agreements related to the object, its use in commerce must comply with the terms of those contracts. Fifth one is regulatory compliance. Certain objects may be subject to specific regulations of license or licensing requirements. For example, in industries like pharmaceutical or firearms, there are strict regulations governing the production, sale and use of certain objects. Sixth one is consumer protection. If the object is intended for consumers, it must meet consumer protection standards, including providing accurate information about the object and associated risk. Seventh one is environmental regulations. Depending on the nature of the objects, it may need to comply with environmental regulations governing its productions, use and disposal. Next, terms and conditions of contracts. Terms and conditions in contracts are crucial elements that outline the rights, responsibilities and obligations of the parties involved. While specifies can vary greatly depending on the nature of the contract and the parties involved. Here are some common elements often found in terms and conditions. Parties to the contract identifies the individuals or entities entering into the contract, including their names, addresses and contract information. Purpose of the contract. It describes the intent and scope of the agreement, outlining what goods or services will be provided or exchanged. Third one is payment terms. Specifies the amount of compensation, payment schedule, acceptable forms of payment and the penalties for late payment. Delivery and performance. Details how and when goods or services will be delivered or performed, including milestones or deadlines. Fifth one, warranties and guarantees. State any promises or assurance made regarding the quality, performance or condition of goods or services. Sixth one is liability and indemnification. Defines each party's responsibilities in the event of a breach of contract or other legal issues, including any limits on liability and procedures for resolving disputes. Seventh one is termination and cancellation. Outlines the conditions under which the contract can be determined by either party, including any notice requirements and potential consequences. Next one is confidentiality and non-disclosure. Specifies how confidential information will be handled and protected, including any restrictions on sharing and disclosing sensitive data. Ninth one is intellectual property rights. Addresses ownership and usage rights of any intellectual property involved in the contract, such as patents, copyrights or trademarks. Tenth one is governing laws and jurisdiction, determining which laws will govern the interpretation and enforcement of the contract, as well as the jurisdiction where legal disputes will be resolved. 11th one is force majeure. Defines unforeseen circumstances or events beyond the parties' control that may excuse performance under the contract, such as natural disaster or acts of war. 12th one is severability. States that if any provisions of the contract is found to be invalid or unenforceable, the remaining provisions will still be binding. 13th one is amendment and modification. Specifications the process for making changes or amendments to the contract, including the requirements for written consent from both parties. From both parties. Last one is assignment. Determines whether the parties can transfer their rights or obligations under the contract to another party. Thank you.